So, hi, Dr. Campbell. It's me again, Richard. So, I'm making this other video now, which I'm gonna tag you in, but I'm also addressing this to this duty officer at West Yorkshire Joint Services, but it's training standards. But they keep saying they want people to submit complaints through the citizens' advice, but there is actually another body to do with our consumer rights, trading standards and consumer rights. The last time I put a complaint through, I put it through consumer rights as well. It was about Amazon Music app, because they'd set the music app up so it was, the music app was really, really annoying, and you couldn't access the products you bought on it properly. Like when you bought music, you couldn't access the albums list properly. They kind of blocked it off, and they were using some really manipulative strategies on Amazon. But there were over 700 or 800 complaints on Facebook, so I collected them all together and I reported it in. And even the consumer rights web form wasn't even working. That had been hacked. While I was trying to do, I rang up. I ended up ringing up and speaking to them on the phone. But Amazon have put the app back now, and it's kind of okay now. It's all sorted out. Also, another thing that I did, which was, that's globally as well. Amazon app, by the way, that's like a global change. Also, YouTube, on the live chat on YouTube, they got a really misleading menu system. One of the options on the menu were live chat, top chat, but the live chat was called live chat. So when you press the button for the menu, the options were the same words as what the chat was called itself. It was just so confusing and misleading. So I complained to YouTube for quite a while, and then they've actually changed that as well now. So it says all messages or top chat. Those are the options, and that is also a global change around the whole world. I also wasn't happy with the copyright process that YouTube had, and I complained about the copyright. I actually made a legal representation myself, and they totally updated the whole copyright process after that legal complaint. So, there's some things that I've done successfully. Now, this matter that I want to talk about, right, this is a bit more serious, but again, it's something global, but it kind of ties into it ties into issues that are currently global issues that are being talked about on YouTube now by people who are aware there's a international problem, like Neil Oliver and John Campbell, Russell Brand, Richard Verb's channel, people like that. They're all on this topic of basically the corporate entities and their agenda, and we know through the Anonymous channel how it all works, the ownership of the companies, right? So we've been shown the model of the investment ownerships of the majority of the brands, and we're all aware that they're owned by the same entities, right? Or the same entity under BlackRock Vanguard Group, right? So when you go to trading standards about companies and consumer rights, a lot of these companies and businesses are owned by the same owners, and they're all controlled and orchestrated in the same strategy and plan. And unfortunately, it's the government who are their allies, particularly the Tories. So when we get these joint services and trading standards and organisations like this, who are responsible for these companies, but they're put in place and funded by the government, alarm bells ring when a lot of these companies that you're governing and in charge of keeping in order, they're all kind of united together in some sort of union, but not like trade union, workers union, in like a corporate ownership ring. And this corporate ownership ring, everything that they are doing and wanting the government to get put through as well, is in line with now a global strategy, a global mission. And that mission was made clear by Sir Tony Blair at the World Economic Forum when he was talking about a plan and wanting these politicians to focus on this plan. And this plan is the plan that the private global sector are wanting to do. And they own a lot of, well, when I say everything, I mean nearly everything. It turns out that they are either own everything or are attempting to buy literally everything. You know, you walk in the supermarket and they own everything that you can nearly see in the supermarket, nearly, or a large proportion of it. Now, when Charles was at the World Economic Forum, he was boasting of a military-styled, marshalled campaign, global campaign by the private sector, which had trillions at its disposal beyond the leaders of the world and beyond the government's GDPs. So it's very, very, very clear now, that particularly when you get these international companies, you know, like TRANSDEV buses and all these companies, right? It's all being orchestrated to a strategy and plan, right? Now, I've identified some very significant things in this plan. And so I'll name some companies, right? One company, for example, TRANSDEV. TRANSDEV is a bus and coach and transport company. It's a global company. It's got businesses and companies, TRANSDEV Group, all around the world. This is also one of these groups that fall into this globalist movement, right? And under these orchestrated entities. As well as TRANSDEV on the buses, we've got JCB. Now, JCB have got headquarters in Uttoxeter. They make construction vehicles, right? That's another globalist group under these entities. So we've got TRANSDEV buses and coaches, we've got JCB construction, but we've also got McDonald's and other restaurants, right? McDonald's are a global restaurant company and they advertise all over the world on television and radio, right? Now, what is the complaint about? Because so far you haven't even heard the complaint, but you can't hear the complaint until you know all that information, and then you know what we're dealing with, who we're dealing with, and how it all works and fits together, right? Now, the complaint is about noise. The complaint is about these companies making or using either machines or devices or using advertisements and promotion, right, or an equipment which emits a sound or noise. And my complaint and claim is that these sounds and noise emitted are harmful to the ears. They're distressing. They've got a distressing pitch and sound, which is not only harmful to people who are suffering from stress, it actually can cause stress and upset people and actually harm people. But also, not only the fact that these sounds are strategically designed and chosen to be specific pitches and specific frequencies, they also tie into a strategy that I believe is currently already underway, right? Now, the McDonald's issue is the whistle tune, which is like a whistle which goes, well, and the last two notes, which I haven't actually copied very well there, they go exceptionally high and piercing. And those two notes at the end, it's very hard to protect or defend yourself from them if you don't want to hear it or listen to it. And it's almost like a dog whistle or a dog call, like when the farmer uses dog whistles. Or if you get the mice sound, you can buy a device that you plug in to the wall socket, which keeps rodents away. It's a very, very high-pitched sound that even only rodents can hear it. And it actually keeps the rodents out of your room because they're deterred by the sound. They don't like the sound, so they stay away, right? Now, that McDonald's whistle, I can't protect myself from it in the house. No matter when I shut the doors, it still comes through all the house. So it's getting really upsetting and annoying now, and I'm actually already under stress from the doctor. So it's really upsetting me, and I've complained to McDonald's about it. Now, there is a backstory with that whistle tune, and the backstory is that I made some music in 2012, and this is separate from the complaint, but you need to know this, though. This is relevant to know this. You have to know it, but this is not part of the complaint to you. I wrote some music in 2012, and one of the songs was very, very short. It was a short piece. It was called Your House, and it has got a tune and a whistle in it, right? And I made a large number of homemade CDs at the time, and I sent them out to the BBC. I sent quite a lot of them to the BBC Radio 2 headquarters, and the rest I sent them to... I went through the list of radio stations in England, and I sent a CD to every single radio station in England, right? Now, subsequently, after that, after I sent them out, not too long after I sent them out, suddenly, right, McDonald's appears conjuring up this whistle tune, right, which was just after 2012, and then it was everywhere. And the whistle tune is near identical to the tune in that song on my album, and it's the best song. It's the best and strongest song on the album, right? But it changes the last notes at the end, and it raises them up very, very high. And it's that height pitch of the notes which is not only annoying but piercing, right? Now, you might think, well, it's just a whistle with just a tune. Well, yeah, but they use it to sell and advertise and get you to think of McDonald's. But firstly, it is annoying and you can't protect from it. And it's designed to pierce. The sound and the frequency is designed to pierce through and penetrate through things. Now, this is when I want to bring JCB into it, right? Now, JCB... all the vehicles now are standard are fitted with a beeping sound, right, for when the vehicles are operating. It goes beep, 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 right? And we've had construction vehicles next to us recently operating for the last 12 months nearly now. And we've been hearing it all the time. And again, the building site, you only need a beeping sound to warn people who are, around 8 to 10 metres. And those vehicles do not drive fast. They've got speed limiters on them. They can't drive fast anyway, particularly when reversing. So there's no need to hear that sound for more than 10 metres radius. So why is it that over 200 metres away, you can still hear that sound? And not only outside, but when you're inside your house with the doors and windows shut, it still penetrates through and is annoying as hell at a very high pitch. Now, the thing about the building sites in JCB is this. Many people object to building sites, right, with local councils. And many communities come together and form community groups to object. And a lot of times they're failing, because the council aren't upholding the objections. They're just, still giving planning permission. And many of the planning permission, Taylor Wimpey, Balfour Beatty, all own these corporate entities by the very same people that own TRANSDEV, McDonald's and JCB, this Vanguard group of investors. And they don't want to have their planning permission denied, right? Now, the thing is, right, at first, when you see a building site, you don't really want it there, right? You don't want them to build next year. You want to see a nice bit of scenery, a nice bit of countryside, or have the nice peace and quiet. Many people don't want houses built in their village, and many people want to object, right? Now, they dislike what's going to be done to their area. Just like the mice dislike the noise when you put the beeping sound in the plug socket in the wall. The mice will go away from it. Now, we don't all want to have to move house and move away from our area just because Balfour Beatty or Taylor Wimpey are coming building houses, right? But we don't like it, we dislike it. And it's the dislike to it that motivates us to attempt to do something to stop it. We must stop them. Our will. We have a will in our mind. I don't want them to do that. It's going to spoil and ruin the area. Therefore, I have to engage my willpower to oppose it. Now, we're putting objections in, but yet the council are just, they're not upholding them. So we're using willpower to try and protect ourselves, but the council disarm us and invalidate it, right? And what's going on outside, we really, really, really don't like it, right? So when there's all these beeping sounds there, you want to stop it, like the little mouse wants to stop the beeping sound by running away. But we can't run away because we live next to it. Now, what you would do out in the wild in the jungle, if you were out in the wild, if there was a really loud noise that was really, really upsetting you and annoying you, you would either, 1, fight, or 2, flight. Fight or flight. You would either run away from it, or you would fight it. So to fight it, you have to, stop the noise from happening. So if there's something in wild making a noise, you go over to it and you bloody stop it from making that noise. Now, unfortunately, the clever government has set up laws so you can't get the council to stop the building site from the noise because unless it's before 7:30 or after a certain time at night, you have to put up with it. So you can't use your fight or flight to kick in because the government have made it illegal for you to act. So they've disarmed your willpower there. Now, you will, if you get an animal in a cage and annoy it and poke it with a stick, it really will not be happy, right? It won't be happy at all. It will run around the cage. Now, the thing is, right, whenever you hear these noises, you want to try and stop them, or whenever someone's building something and it's really going to ruin your area, you want to stop it. You've got a natural urge to stop it. Now, what these new JCBs, they've fitted an extremely loud, high-pitched thing that really, it travels, 500 metres at a piercing sound. Now, as it turns out, the speaker that is fitted to the JCB, it turns out they fit the loudest one by standard. So the JCB owner, the person who bought the vehicle, can actually go and buy a quieter speaker, right? But he has got no controls on it to lower it or raise it. It's loud, fixed. He has to go and spend some more money to buy a quieter one. It's an optional purchase, right? But when they're all sent out from the factory, they have the loudest one, which is ridiculous. Now, the thing is, right, that there's a strategy to this. There's a psychological strategy to do with the willpower of humans and a global strategy because they want people to be defeated by this noise and you can't run away, right? And you can't fight or flight. So you end up with a paradox where it really is annoying and upsetting, right? And then after a while, what happens is your willpower puts up with it. It ends up having to get used to this sound, which actually it didn't want to have to get used to it or put up with it. Now, can you imagine if, your dad was smacking your bottom every day and you didn't like it and you wanted him to stop? Or the headmaster at school was hitting your hand with a ruler all the time? After a while, either you fight or flight. So either you get used to them smacking your hand with a ruler and then, it doesn't hurt anymore because your hands got so hard and tough, where they can just beat your hand to bloody death, right? Or smack your bottom to death until it's raw red. Unfortunately, that's illegal now. or else if they would have carried on letting people smack their bottom till it was raw red, then we would still be doing it. But they've made a decision that actually, no, that's harmful to people and we shouldn't do that. They shouldn't beat your bottom until you can't feel it anymore and then, you know, just carry on beating it. Now, that's where I'm at with the JCBs. Now, I've actually researched this, and actually people who have bought them, even the owners, farmers who have bought them, owners who have bought these from JCB, many of them are saying, bloody hell, I've bought a new JCB. Isn't there any way to make it quieter? It's ridiculous, the noise, the sound. But this is a strategy that JCB are doing as a global operation, right? And they're doing it, right, because the thing is, right, when you've got something around you in your environment that you don't like, then you either want to try and make it go away or you want to stop it. Now, you can't stop the building of houses because the council are not upholding proper objections. They're just claiming that they're not valid, but when they are. So they're lying and disabling your willpower that way. And then to actually stop the noise that's annoying, never mind stopping the building site itself from building the houses, they've got a law so you can't do anything about that noise. So the law is disabling your human will power from preventing something happening in your immediate environment that you don't want to happen. And you've actually got a right to object, actually, believe it or not. This is coming down to the right of petition and things like that. Now, if you get used to something that you really don't like and really don't want, and you just end up accepting it, right, after a while, if they can make you accustomed to or acclimatized to things that you don't like and don't want, then you end up not being bothered. You end up not objecting. You end up, instead of trying to oppose it, trying to quieten it down, you end up putting up with it. You end up accepting it. It's almost like accept cookies, you know, and then you stop trying to ban cookies and you accept them into your food supply source, into your food system, accept cookies, right? There's a strategy behind it. And then what happens is they can continue to build and do more housing estates in the area. And by that time, you've put up with the noise and you've given up. And you think that, well, there's no point objecting because the council will just, you know, not uphold it. So what you end up doing is allowing a foreign entity, a foreign group, to just do what they want in your area, and they end up messing it up. So this is the whole psychological strategy behind it. Now, it's the same with McDonald's, but they're not just attacking us with that loud JCB sound. I went to Anglesey, right out into the countryside in Anglesey, to that Bryn Celly Dadu burial, the chamber, the temple in Anglesey. We went there one day with my parents for Christmas, actually, just this Christmas gone. It was my present. It took us 2 hours to drive there. And I went there to this beautiful ancient Celtic temple. And you know what? We got there. Guess what ruined totally ruined the visit there? Beep, 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 beep. A farm. A farmer using a side loader over 3 or 4 fields, like 3 or 4 fields away, absolutely ruined the experience in the beautiful sacred temple chamber. Absolutely terrible. Ruined it. 2 hours drive to Anglesey. Absolutely ruined it. They're too loud, and they've chosen a pitch that it doesn't just let people know, oh, you know, there's something near. I mean, you know, when you shout, oi, you know, I mean, you could have an ice cream van or whatever, but the ice cream van's never been that annoying. The pitch of it is, there's a certain pitch that really gnaws at the centre of your brain. Now, the problem is, right, that the McDonald's thing is always tied into food as well, you know, and through the house. You can't get away from it. And it's really annoying. Now, on the Doctor Who programme, you know, they had those Sontarans and they had this sound that they were emitting. And I believe that it was an example of this, because they had the Sontarans were almost like these builders that we're dealing with, and they were just laughing about it. And I believe that that scene that was written by Chris Chibnall was highlighting this issue. If you want to watch the Doctor Who series with the Sontarans from the last series that's been on, you can watch it. I've actually taken some clips of it, and once I've explained this to you, when you watch it, it will then make sense, right? I know it's a fictional program, but Chibnall likes to put things in that are relevant to current affairs that are happening. And the other thing is TRANSDEV. Now, if you look at TRANSDEV, it's a global company all around the world with stocks and shares floating on there and shareholders and owners. Now, what TRANSDEV have done is they've come into our area, they've bought out bus contracts, and they're trying to they're trying to take over the whole buses for the area. And it's to do with all the cycle lanes, and they don't really want people to drive into town. They're trying to get people to ride bikes, even though it's England and it's, you know, raining and snowing half of the year. Now, these TRANSDEV buses are not comfy. The TRANSDEV buses are very uncomfy, and they've got talking buses on that just go next stop, next stop, next stop, next stop. Some stops are only 30 seconds apart, and it's just non-stop all the time. Next stop, next stop, next stop, next stop. And it absolutely drives you insane, repetitive, right? And it's going past these stops all the time saying next stop, next stop, next stop. It's almost like, you know, you don't want to stop. And I pointed out that there's a psychological play in that. And also, when you're going to buy food, right, and your brain thinks, I might stop myself from buying that cheese. I might not do that. I might not buy that bread. You know, maybe I should go on a diet. But you carry on buying it anyway. And I believe that most people on the bus are going to shopping. There's something brain training to, when you think in your head, stop, stop, stop. But all it's doing is you're going past stops all the time. And it's going next stop, next stop, next stop. But you're going carrying on, carrying on, carrying on. It's almost like training your brain, even though you think, maybe I won't buy that, just to carry on buying, even though your brain's thinking stop, 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 but you carry on. But it's not only that, people aren't talking to each other on the buses anymore. Because of the talking buses. They just want people to look in the headphones and watch the mobile phone and not even look out of the window at all the beautiful things around them that are getting just built and bulldozed and changed. It's distracting you from what is actually happening around you, right? Now, also, on those buses, they've got the most terrible caricatures. They've got these very horrible imp characters. I don't know why they chose to do these pink buses with these characters on, but they're all sinister and they're all winking like very evil winks. And whenever they go past, it's doing these evil winks, and it's almost like, you know, the gremlins are attacking or something. Sinister winks. It's almost like imps, and they're all over the town now. You know, I mean, there's one like with a chef hat on it, and there's also one with like a Jodie Whittaker on it as well from Doctor Who. Believe it or not, because she's from the nearby village anyway. And when I went into Subway, you know, they've got all these cookies out on the counter in the display cabinet, right? All these cookies. And, you know, it's the whole accept cookies, accept cookies, accept cookies culture. And they're really doing terrible damage to people's health. Now, the thing is, right, I'm stood in Subway getting a coffee, right? But I'm looking at this cookie cabinet thinking, you know, all these people are really, really overweight and getting diabetic. I wish there was something we could do to stop these cookies, right? And as soon as I thought that, what can we do to stop these cookies, right? I walk out of Subway, and what drives past? The bus, the pink TRANSDEV bus, and what's on the back of it staring at me is the chef, the impish, evil chef character winking at me. Wink, wink, evil chef. So I'm in Subway looking at these cookies that are causing damage, diabetes and addiction to my fellow humans who are eating them and overweight, Most of the staff in these shops are overweight. And I'm thinking in my head, we need to save people from these cookies. And the first thing I see when I walk out of Subway is the back of the bus driving past with the impish chef staring straight at me with an expression of hehehehe. Now, what does that make me think? Is there any hope to save my fellow humans from these cookies? When even the chef is on the back of the bus mocking the bus company owned by TRANSDEV. I don't want to get on the bus anymore. I don't even want to look at the bus because I don't like the bus. And the seats on it are uncomfy. I'm actually being warded away from the bus by its physical manifestation. I don't like the visual look of the bus, and I don't like the feel of it when I sit on it, and the talking bus is a nightmare torture. So I don't want to catch those buses. So they are frightening me, harassing me from even using those buses, right? And the building machine, construction vehicle, is harassing me when I'm in my own house for 6 months solid, when they didn't put planning notices out to warn us about the planning to object anyway. And the council can't do anything about the noise because of the law. I know there are certain volume levels for those machines, but they're wrong, I can tell you. And it's not just about the volume of it. There are certain pitches, and it's not just McDonald's, and it's not just JCB, and it's not just TRANSDEV. If you investigate these companies, they're owned by the same shareholder groups, right? If you look at the anonymous official video that investigated them all, they're all owned and controlled and directed by the same entities, and they've got a plan and strategy. And I believe that plan and strategy is the same plan which Tony Blair at the World Economic Forum is saying, do you want the politicians to all focus on this plan? And then Charles is saying when King Charles is speaking at this World Economic Forum, he's saying that we're using a military-styled, marshalled global campaign from the private sector. Well, it seems to me that we're under attack from these sounds and noises, and there's a defeating psychology in it because they're trying to break our will and make us give in and not try to stop them or oppose them or fight them anymore, right? And we're being attacked by sound, caricatures, images. It's not the friendly snap, crackle and plop on the cornflakes. It's very sinister characters. Now, you need to be a psychologist to understand this, and you need to believe in it, but I can tell you it's happening now, and it needs very intelligent people who know what's going on to see the big picture of it and do something to intervene, right? And, there are people out there who can understand this, like Dr. Stenekberg, Dr. Eightberg, possibly Dr. Campbell, if he listens to it properly. It's part of this global World Economic Forum. Now, the other concerning thing is this. This is to do with sounds and noises, right, which travel through the air. The sounds and noises travel through the air. Visual things travel through light waves, which you can only see, if you're looking at it, But the thing is, right, I know for certain that back in 2005, between 2005, 2003, 2004, 2005, when they were selling those bigger mobile phones, those bigger, brick-shaped ones, and, the Nokia ones and other brands and companies, right? I had a mobile phone between 2000 and 2005, and I used to put that mobile phone at the side of my bed on my chest of drawers. And on numerous occasions, when I was in bed, relaxing, going to sleep or waking up, some someone sent me text messages, one of my friends, and when those text messages were coming through, before the phone received the text messages, before the phone beeped to go beep beep, you've got a text message, I was relaxed, and in my brain, in the middle of my brain, my pineal gland or whatever you want to call it, you know, hippocampus or wherever it is, right? I was laid there and I felt very strongly and I felt very firmly actual physical brain stimulation, a physical touching brain stimulation, a vibration. And moments after I felt that physical stimulation, a massage of my brain, then my mobile phone beeped. Beep, beep, beep. A text message is there. Now, I felt, before my phone beeped and acknowledged the message, I physically felt it coming through, and it's got a wave. There is a transmitted wave that can stimulate the human brain and send vibrations into it, which it can feel, right? Now, since then, I've never felt it on subsequent mobile phones. So whatever signal they were using, it is now weaker. It is now not as strong. They've had to change regulations. I mean, and around that time, 2001, is when Terence McKenna actually died from a brain tumour, right? Now, we've got this problem at the moment where some people were complaining about these 5G towers going up everywhere and 6G towers, right? Because they're wanting to do more and more data and signals. So I know that vibrations can be emitted for, because I have physically felt them. It is my evidence and testimony that when we had Nokia mobile phones, I felt it. And actually I had another brand as well in my brain. So they can and are sending signals out to us, which the brain is feeling vibrations, whether or not you can physically feel it quite strongly or whether they've reduced it to a lower frequency, right? So what they're going to be emitting with those signals is debatable. But we know that Elon Musk, who has Twitter now and Tesla, right, he's working on Neuralink, which is something that links the device to the brain and can send signals backwards and forwards on Neuralink, right? So he's working on Neuralinks. Now, that's usually a hard connection, like he wants to fit a device into you, not remote signal from a mobile phone. But it's being worked on. People are working on it, right? Now, the thing is this is what the World Economic Forum and Tony Blair and Charles and so forth are very, very interested in. This is the projects that they present at the World Economic Forum. Things to do with transmitting signals and brains and minds and microchips in your thumb and so forth, right? Now, another thing to do with Tesla is this. Where do we also hear beeps? Well, they use a beep in a car. You've got nice beeps and nasty beeps in a car. If you leave the door open or don't close it properly, it does a very nice and gentle bing, 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 until you close the door properly. Or if there's a dashboard light on, it's a friendly, gentle sound, not a very nasty, horrible sound that goes beep, 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 piercing, that you really distresses you, right? Now, they've also got sounds in a car of the seatbelt sound, right? The seatbelt being put on. If you don't put your seatbelt on, it puts a nasty sound. Now, the problem with that sound is that you really, really, really want to stop the sound and turn it off. You're compelled to try and stop that sound, because that sound is going to harass you and going to annoy you until you make it stop. So the only way to make it stop is by putting your seatbelt on. So you comply, you obey. I will do what you say if you stop harassing me. Stop that horrible sound, right? Now, this is what's happening with the building site, but almost the reverse of that, because you can't put your seatbelt on in the house to make the building site stop. There's nothing you can do to stop that building site, because the council won't stop it during the daytime, and you can't go over to them and stop it because, you know, it's fitted to the machine and they can't turn the sound off, right? So you can't stop it, and you really dislike it. So it's almost, but they want you to put up with that sound and not be able to stop it, because then really you don't like the sight of the new houses. You don't like the visual loss of your environment, of your beautiful view, of your fields, of your, you know, and you don't want the area busier. It was quiet. It was nice and quiet. There was, you know, not as many people there. And now it might be busy and hectic. And you wouldn't have put up with that. You'd object to it. Use your will to object. And then you end up, you know, because otherwise you don't want, you know, but then what happens is it gets busier and busier and busier and louder and louder and louder. And what you have to do is just put up with it. Put up with it. And then what do you end up with? Birmingham. You end up with a place that is not really nice to live in, and people who live there are miserable. What you're actually doing is creating miserable areas, and you're getting people to put up with misery being built and constructed all around them, and not actually act to do anything about it, you know? And you actually end up not speaking to people. You end up not speaking to these people who have moved into the area because you resent them. Now, these corporate entities and companies, all they're doing is making profits out of us. They want to make profit. They don't actually give a damn about us or our happiness. And now Keir Starmer has said that he wants to build more in the next 6 years than he's ever built in the next 30. So he's going to create more misery. Now, what have they built since Labour Party was created in 1900? Misery. They built misery around Birmingham, misery around you know, Cadbury's. Misery. All those urban centres are now miserable, and they're saying, and now what they're wanting to do is start building in other areas. So now we're all going to have misery around us. They're just going to have more of it. In fact, more misery in the next 7 years than the misery they created in the last 30. Now, we need to do something about this. I know it's a big thing. Well, it is a big thing because this is now what Neil Oliver and John Campbell and, you know, Russell Brand and everybody are. This is our mission. We've got to stop this global elite. And who is responsible for it? Well, it's Tony Blair, Sir Nick Clegg, Charles, you know, Alan Sugar. It's the Knights of the Realm and the King. That's who's behind it, and the World Economic Forum and all the BlackRock Vanguard shareholders. Now, they're actually attacking us. This is my claim. It is a bold claim, but I've explained to you how it all works and how it all fits together. These people are attacking us with sounds. They've done experiments on animals in the laboratories. They've harassed the animals. They've injected them with God knows what. They've, you know, put them in mazes. They've got monkeys, you know, playing, you know, Atari with for banana rewards. They've done all the experiments on the creatures that crawl, the creatures that slither, the creatures that have 4 legs, the creatures that gallop. They've done all the experiments and all the torture experiments on these creatures, and they've learned how to control and manipulate them, and how their will works, how the animal's willpower works, and what motivates it to go and get something, or what motivates it to stay away from something and go away. Like the mouse thing I've got on the plug socket that I plug in that we can't hear, that keeps mice away because they don't like the sound, right? Now, the problem is that they don't want, they're not happy with, you know, us objecting and not agreeing to what they want to do, you know, because otherwise we wouldn't, you know, want to do. all this work all the time and building excess, because, you know, all the resources and work we're doing isn't going to the people who don't have money, to the people who can't feed themselves, and people who, and what's happening, all of this science and technology that they're using through advertisements and the psychology of it is now has got people addicted to foods and is getting people to eat too much, and they're getting obese, they're getting diabetic, they're getting cancerous, and Dr. John Campbell will vouch for this. Dr. Eric Berg and Dr. Sten Ekberg will vouch for this. Dr. Tim Spector will vouch for this. Many top doctors will vouch for this, that we are eating the wrong foods and too much food. And what's been happening is these global companies that are now all owned by the same group, they've got trillions at the disposal, and they're now boasting, Charles is boasting about this trillions. It's in gross excess to what even governments are turning over in GDP. So we've got serious issues. Now, I have had enough of this McDonald's tune. Not only did it copy off my album that I sent out to the BBC, following those exact, you know, it was timed perfectly, and they nicked my tune and then they turned it into some really annoying sound, which has a psychological element to it. Consumer element for food, but it's also annoying. It ties into this new sound and vision matrix which they've introduced with the JCB sound, where they've got building sites everywhere, and with the TRANSDEV talking buses. They're using a system which is, they've got a visual system with pictures and graphics which you can only you have to look at it, you have to see it. It's a visual system based on pictorial images and light, which, you know, you can see it when you look. And there's a sound matrix with sound, and they're doing it because they want to break our will, so we won't object to what they're doing, and we will either, well, there's two ways on it. In the situation how it's employed in the car, you hear the beep and you immediately want to stop that beep from beeping, so you comply and do an action to comply to put the seatbelt on, right? So that is, you will do, to turn the sound off, to stop the sound, you will do something that it wants you to do, right? I need to stop that sound, I don't like it, so I'll put my seatbelt on, right? The reverse psychology happens to that. They can do it the other way. That is that, there's this horrible noise. I really don't like it. I don't like those houses being built around my house. I really need to stop that. I need to shut it off. But they've made laws, so I can't. The council, there's no way they're going to uphold and respect our objections, even though they're valid. And I can't shut it off because the builder, I'll get arrested if I knock the builder out. I'll get arrested if I fucking rip the fucking if I tear the fucking JCB to pieces. I'll get arrested, and the council won't stop it within those hours because they've made it legal. So I've got a Rubicon. I can't do anything, right? So in that instance, we have to put up with it, and that's the really high pitched, really, really, really annoying one. And then once you accept it, then that's it. Once you're defeated by that sound, your will's defeated. Your will then it's almost like accept cookies, accept cookies, accept cookies. You've accepted the construction in the area, and they will just fucking build what the fuck they want, and you won't be able to do a thing about it. So and on the bus, I won't even get on the bus now. I can't stand it. It's intimidating me, it's harassing me, it's antisocial now. They don't want people to go into town really anyway, because they want town reserved for all the students, the foreign students they've brought in particularly, but also they just don't want people going into town. They don't want us to drive only on bikes, even though it's raining and icy half the year. So they've weaponised. Now, where's the statement to back that up? Where's the proof and evidence that they've weaponised these things? Well, Charles has the king has spoken. The king has spoken. I am Charles, I am at the World Economic Forum, and I quote, we need a military-styled, marshalled campaign from the private sector with funding of disposable trillions that are far beyond the GDP of any country. By the way, the private sector that has bought up all the businesses, right? So I've just explained the whole thing. Now, if they take this a step further, merely from like sound, dislike sound, and like fucking impish characters, don't like impish characters, right? They're moving it on to Neuralink, which is what Elon Musk's working on, and they're moving it on to the fucking microchips, and they're moving on to a deeper level, a deeper penetration into the brain, right? Now, what do the political parties want? They want you to support their party. They want you to vote for their party and franchise and just go along with what they're doing, either Labour or Tory. Now, when Labour and Tory are doing the same thing, because Sir Keir Starmer is leading Labour in the exact way to do what Tony Blair wants, and Nick Clegg, and King Charles, and fucking Alan Sugar, then we're fucked. Because it doesn't matter whether you flip the coin and land on heads, or flip the coin and land on tails, they win. Starmer wins, the Tories win. So there is no voting really, because it's their plan. It's Starmer and the government's plan, and they're pretending that one party is going to do a little bit more for the working class, and they're pretending that the other party is going to do a little bit more for the other people. But it's not true. Now, the problem is they're using a strategic military force, and it's not even his own army. It's not 77th Battalion. It's not the army, but it's a military-styled action. Well, a military-style action is, if it's military-styled, then it's military, surely. Now, if it's from the private sector, global private sector, that's not necessarily based in a certain country, because it's almost a coalition of businesses that are all owned by BlackRock Vanguard, it's effectively a private army. It's a private army, a coalition of businesses that are all owned by the same companies and groups, right? And we've got Charles popping up, boasting of such a military-styled, marshalled, private sector operation with trillions at his disposal. So, and Tony Blair is there saying, we want everyone to go along with the plan. And Nick Clegg's operating the plan on Facebook, because every time people are doing political actions and political petitions and so forth, all his posts are disappearing, all his petition signatures are fucking disappearing from Facebook. So, we've got a problem. Although Elon Musk has been actually trying to do something about it on Twitter, but we don't really know where we are with Musk, because he's been helping them by doing the Neuralink research. So, we've got issues. Now, my immediate concern is I've complained to McDonald's about that whistle tune, and I want them to stop it. I want them to stop the whistle tune or remove those last two notes at the end of it, because A, it's harassing me, and I'm under medical cover from the doctor for stress already. I can't protect myself from it in the house, because even when you shut all the doors, you can still hear it, right? Or even if I go into the gas station across the road, I can hear it on the radio, he's playing it. So he's annoying the hell out of me, right? And the talking buses, I've complained to First Buses about it. I've complained to the Mayor of West Yorkshire about it, Tracy Brabin. I've complained to Arriva about it, right? This TRANSDEV company is being used, weaponised. They're getting the designers to come up with these logos and so forth. Now, you need to inquire a lot deeper with a proper full investigation to find out who in the company and how. But all you need to know is they've been giving directions of them being putting directions in there. Because unless you know what's happening and what's going on and see how it all fits together and works, then you don't even know that it exists. I can guarantee you it exists. All you have to do is recognise what's going on and how they are using the technology and the science and the psychology. It's clearly evident with the car seatbelt. But they're not content with that. They've got us all going and buying their products anyway when we shouldn't be eating half of them. They've got us addicted to them, you know. They're using it to get us to buy, right? And half of the time now, on YouTube and so forth, they're hijacking us phones with the Google Play apps, hijacking phone controls. There's malware in the keyboards that, you know, even Oppo phone company can't fix it. And they're just spamming us with Google ads, which you can't stop. The trading standards and consumer rights need to understand this and know what's going on. Now, the problem is that they're put in place by the government and they're funded by the government. And the problem is that the majority of these companies, they're all owned by the same people, right? And it turns out that the advocate of all this is Charles, who is the King of England. So we've got a problem. Now, I want that, not only is that McDonald's fucking tune copyrighted off my fucking song, it's actually harassment. And I want something done about that McDonald's tune and the JCB sound. It's too loud and it's at the wrong pitch. It is a diabolical strategy to break people's will so they can get more and more building done and people won't oppose it. It's psychologically effective. And they're using it on the buses as well. They're using devices and sounds. It's the study of it is similar to animals. But, you know, Charles and the whole corporate sector have got all the army study on soldier training, you know. They wrote the book on it. They wrote the whole book on the behaviour, you know, stress testing. What will this creature do when put under stress? What will this squirrel do when put under stress? What will this mouse do when put under stress? What will this man do when put under stress? And how can we break their will and get them to comply? Now, the end game is clear and obvious, because they want people just to vote for Labour or Tory who are all going to go along with this plan. They don't want people to do anything else or do something which opposes them. The plan's clear. They want to continue to progress so that we comply and obey with their entire whistle, as if it was the car. You know, the car does a certain whistle sound, you put the seatbelt on, right? Every command they send, whether it's a whistle, whether it's a picture, or whether it's transmitted, you know, remotely from a fucking mobile phone directly to your brain without even seeing or hearing anything loud, whether it's quiet. They want the ultimate command control. That's their end game, and that has always been their end game, and that is not freedom. It's not freedom. They're wanting to enhance and advance the control. And at the end of the day, is that not just the model of the monarchy? You know, I am king, you know, and we are the servants, you know, the beehive. Now, we've got an issue because there's humanity and there's free will. You know, and when you have no free will left, there is no freedom. Now, we had wars to abolish slavery in chains because the Americans decided it was wrong and that we weren't going to have slaves in chains anymore. But now we've got a bigger problem because this entity, this group, wants to chain our minds. It wants control of the mind, and all the technology is heading towards that. And then when you've got all the viruses they're chucking in, all this RNA injections and God knows what experiments they've done. I mean, I might as well tag Paul Rand, Senator Paul Rand in this, because he's someone who gets it. He's someone who understands it. We don't even know if he's aiding and abetting them or not, but, you know, America's meant to be the land of the free. So, you know, this may be too deep for trading standards. it may be too deep for consumer rights, but these are companies that are operating in England, TRANSDEV, JCB, McDonald's. I'm explaining to you how it all fits together. I'm explaining how the ownership is connected of the investors, and I'm explaining to you that there's a ringleader and that he's announced a strategy at the World Economic Forum and admitted it, and Tony Blair, and I'm telling you that something needs to be done about it. Now, whether the whole main plan needs to be tackled through the ballot box or through political actions or whatnot, but through trading standards, they can do something about these machines. They can do something about the quality of the sound. They can do something about the harassment that these products are doing if it's intended on purpose, and I hereby give evidence that I strongly believe it is intended. Whether or not JCB himself will admit it or even understands it, the investors have just, made suggestions or put it through the board or whatever. There are ways of them to get it through the company. I'm telling you what that sound does. I'm telling you that it's not a coincidence. I'm telling you that it is planned. It is a certain pitch, a certain volume. It has a purpose. And these are all around the country now, And Starmer's wanting to, do more and more. And people won't want to put up with it, And this is a way to break the will, as well as, the cheating in the council chamber, which is, another matter. But there's a mechanical effect in place. When you get into the car and when you sit down and when that noise sounds and you really want to shut that noise off, it compels you to act. You are compelled to act to shut it off because you don't want to fucking hear it, right? So that's the proof. That's the evidence, that's the model, and that's the science of how it works. It starts off with a simple noise that is, dislike. But then again, when they want you to do something, they can use something you like. Do you like, a donut itself? It's sugar. All it is, it's devoid of minerals and vitamins. They've sucked all the vitamins and minerals out of the food and created something which is pure sugar, pure calories. It's a hollow, hologram. There's no vitamins or minerals in it. It's hollow, Yet we all are compelled to eat it because what they've done is they've isolated something nice. When you get a piece of broccoli's got a very high sugar content in vegetables. The broccoli has an extremely high sugar content. That's why people prefer broccoli to other vegetables, right? So the broccoli draws you to eat it, right? So you're walking in a field and there's some broccoli, right? And you want to eat because you're hungry. You eat the broccoli, and as you're eating it, you're rewarded by the sugars in the broccoli, right? And also, by the vitamins and minerals. And like if you eat peas from a pea pod, peas taste of life, of green, of nature, of oxygen, of water, of fresh growth. Now, the problem is the sugar is the little reward in the fruit and in the veg that compels you to eat it, and you also get the vitamins and minerals. Now, if you take that element out of the fruit and veg, the pure sugar element, and concentrate it, you've got the bit that is purely the reward part. It's purely the reward part, and there's actually no benefits of any minerals or vitamins. And if you make an entire food product out of that one reward part, you end up with a fucking donut or a cookie. And it is actually, then you're compelled to eat it. But not only are you compelled to eat it, you can't stop eating it. In fact, people end up being addicted to them. And someone's making a killing out of it. They're actually making trillions at their disposal. Corporate sector, right? And it's actually making people diabetic and cancerous. And you can ask Dr. Sten Ekberg and Dr. Berg about it, right? And it actually is disarming people. It's actually brain fogging them. It's making their memories bad. It's making their cognitive performance suffer. And what does that do to the human unit, to the human individual, to the human being? It makes them not perform to their maximum capacity. It makes them beatable. It makes them subduable. It makes them obedient to the beeps and the whistles. It makes them not quite be able to make the best legal representation or argument when they're objecting to things. It makes them compliant. And it also makes them a little bit less aloof to the big picture of what I'm explaining. I mean, this actually should be ringing alarm bells in trading standards. This should have the trading standards built in emergency mode. This should have the consumer rights in emergency mode. Because the worst thing is that every single fucking complaint you could send to them about any company, they're all owned by the same fucking group, the BlackRock Vanguard group. So if I was trading standards, if I was consumer rights, which is non-profit actually is allowed to support a political cause up to a certain extent. I think they can use a certain percentage of funds to support a political cause. So you could actually oppose the World Economic Forum or oppose these parties that are trying to do this to us. It's possible. They can actually voice it. The trading standards, the head of trading standards, the executive of trading standards, the executive of consumer rights has got a serious problem, and there needs to be alarm bells ringing. They need to write to King Charles. They need to write to the Archbishop of Canterbury. They need to write to the Prime Minister. They need to write to TRANSDEV, to JCB, and they need to write to McDonald's, because I have had enough of these attacking sounds, these assaults, this weaponry, these military weapons, these military-styled weapons coming from the private global sector, which has a strategy, which is all proven in the science lab with animals, and it's demonstrable when you sit in your car and you start it up and you're compelled to obey the vehicle, right? Now, we need to do something about it, because what they have been controlling us to do has been diabetic, cancerous, and harmful to health. And also now they want to break our wills because they don't want us opposing their plans. They don't want people to oppose their buildings. They don't want people to not buy their food, because then they won't have this disposable trillions in this global private sector which Charles is boasting about. Now, is this a private army or not? Is it a private army? Because we've got a 77th Battalion that is a undercover, covert division of the army, which is paid for by the taxpayer, which is not private. And the type of things that this battalion do, 77th Battalion, are take things down from websites, take information down from computers, and obstruct and intervene in processes. Now, could it be possible that all of the delays, interventions, and so forth that I'm experiencing now, when I'm trying to publish music or do this or that for my campaign to oppose this, I'm finding hindrance and intervention? Now, could it be the corporate, global, private sector who are intervening? Right? And is it because literally every single company that you could deal with, mainly the big companies like, even TuneCore, YouTube, Facebook, Google, maybe, well, not maybe, they are owned by these groups, the same companies and investors. So we've got a problem, because they're using their businesses to hinder and obstruct and slow us down, if not attack us and defeat us. And as far as I know, that's an army. Because our army, our official army, departments of our army do things like block, remove, and intervene on the internet. So that means if Charles has got a military style private sector entity, which is disposable trillions, that is, I quote, intervening, hindering, or blocking people, that is a military unit. But it's a private military unit. It's not our country's military. And as far as I knew, it is, well, what country does it identify with? Is it Italy's army? No country's owning up to being in control of this global corporate army. Now, when it's a entity, when it's a multinational entity, it's acting beyond the armed forces of any country, because it's not the armed forces of any country. So it must be it's a foreign military force, but it doesn't identify with any country because it's multinational. I believe it's a terrorist. It's terrorism. And Charles he's coming out of Charles's mouth at the World Economic Forum and Tony Blair's. So we've got a big problem. Now, I need that McDonald's sound stopped now. And I need the JCB sounds stopped now. And I need those TRANSDEV talking buses and imps stopped now. Because they're part of a very, very clever psychological global strategy that is beyond the capacity of most people to understand, because it's all about a little noise or a little beep or a picture or so forth in order to have a heavy influence and control over people's actions and behaviour, and actually fail them when they're trying to object or even, stop this corporate elite from doing what they want, down to travelling a movement to the building of houses. Something needs to be done about it now. And when it comes to the corporate part of it, trading standards and consumer rights have a duty to act when I'm reporting malicious sounds and malicious noises. Now, we could even get the police in, or even the military. But when the head of the military is Charles, then it's difficult when he's the guy who's boasting about this global private sector that's got disposable trillions that is operating outside and beyond of governments. So we've got problems. So if I was trading standards and consumer rights, I would be writing letters to the government and I would be ringing alarm bells, because I don't want this to happen to my fellow human beings. Because it's not freedom. They're trying to remove our freedom. And we need to stop it, because a lot of it's illegal when you actually know what they're up to. So that's where I am with it. And it's taken an hour and 11 minutes to explain it. And, you might need to re-listen to it, or you might need to write it down. But it needs to be heard and understood.